Hi, I'm Miss Marci and I'm an artist and an art teacher. I'm making these videos so that you have access to some art activities that you can do for yourself or with your family. These videos will outline activities that are accessible and adaptable and that you can make with either household items or things that you can pick up at the supermarket. So let's get to it. You may have noticed the background of my intro included some Matisse cutouts, and those beautiful paper cutouts are the basis for our artworks today. We're going to be doing two activities. One will include tracing and colouring, and the other one will include sticking and pasting. Both activities are quite accessible with the support of whoever is guiding the activity, or if you're working on your own, you can make adaptations for yourself and your needs. So I'm just using some cardboard here that I've had left over from a box, some packaging that came to me, and I'm going to cut some shapes out for the tracing. Now again, depending on the age of the participants, you can do the cutting for them, or they can cut them themselves. It's quite fun, and because the cardboard is not too thick, it's easier to cut out and you have more control than cutting paper. Now for this, I'm just going to cut some organic shapes as well as some geometric shapes. So I have some triangles, a nice organic shape, a rectangle, and we've got this kind of abstracty kind of bits and pieces of the leftovers and a circle. And to build our artwork, we're going to layer these around. Now we can use pencils or textures. So I love my connector pens. All the materials that I'm using today are non-toxic, but you can use whatever you have in your house. Just be wary that if you're doing this with little ones or anyone that's likely to put this in their mouth, to make sure that they're safe materials. I am tracing around my shape, and it's okay if the shape moves. Things don't need to be perfect. We are not printers, so if we want an image to be perfect, we print it out. That's what makes our artworks interesting. So those little imperfections are what makes each artwork unique and what makes it special. So I'm choosing colours at random from my connector pens, and I'm tracing around my cutout shapes. Now you'll notice that the connector pens that I'm using are not the best. They're a little bit old. These are leftovers from my pencil case, but that's okay. The whole point is that we're making, and that we're still developing our skills in tracing and building in composition, and it's okay if they're running out, because again, as I said before, all those little imperfections are qualities that make the artwork interesting and different to a printout from your printer. So you can keep going until you fill the page. It makes it quite interesting when you start to see pictures within your picture. So I've got there these two kind of organic shapes that kind of look like noses, and I'm going to put in another one here. And this is how you start building ideas and creativity with whoever you're doing your artwork with. Even if you're doing it for yourself, it makes it quite interesting to build up the pictures this way. So I've got two faces here. We've got this one eye, another triangular eye, two eyes, and our organic noses. I'm going to use our curve to make a smile for this one. And a frowning face for this one. Whoa, it's a little bit trickier. And I'm just going to keep going. Keep tracing away, keep building. Now you'll notice that all my videos are in real time. There's something that I can't stand on the internet. I mean, I know it's a necessary for some, but when projects are sped up, or they leave out essential bits and pieces, so it makes it seem more realistic and more doable, but when you get to do the project yourself, you realize that you're actually stuck, taking a lot longer than it should. Now this activity can be as long or as short as you like, and it's all really depending on the size of paper that you use and the size of the cutouts. Now this is a kind of intermediate level. If you had someone with additional needs or younger children or seniors that might have a little less patience in getting to their finished product, or someone that's working alongside a child, you might want to use bigger shapes. So by using bigger shapes, you're filling your space a lot sooner. So if you need someone that wants, if you want to make this for someone that wants results faster, then bigger shapes. If you want it to take longer and you have quite a lot of patience, then you can work with smaller shapes. So here we've got some larger shapes, and I'm going to show you some smaller shapes so that you can see what I'm talking about. And of course you can always mix it up. This is really good activity to show scale and say, oh okay, we're going to be doing some small shapes now. Oh, look at the small triangle, and then compare that to the big triangle, especially if you're working with students that are learning their shapes and looking at scale. So then you're looking at mathematical activities as well as an art activity. And if you'd like, you can always bring up pictures from Matisse and show whoever's doing the work and yourself those pictures and have a look at those Matisse cutouts. And also Pinterest is fabulous for having a look at other artists' work that have been inspired by Matisse cutouts. So this block is getting pretty filled up. I'm gonna add these kind of funny shapes that have a mixture of curved and straight lines, and then I'm going to get ready to get to the next stage. Now I've got my colored pencils here. Now that can be finished just like that, and again this is all dependent on patience and ability. You can leave it at that, you can have your interesting mapping of shapes, or you can revisit it another day. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick sections of my shapes and color them in using pencils. So I've matching them to the outline, but it's not important that you do that. You can just pick whatever colors you like. So again, just using some pencils that I had around. You'll notice that some have bitten edges and they're a bit old, but that's okay. They are having the desired effect, and I'm able to colour in all my shapes with them. In doing this, you're building up a picture, and again, the colouring doesn't have to be perfect. The point isn't about being perfect with this, it's about shading in, developing skills. You'll see that some of the time I'm kind of scribbling it in, and other times I'm really getting a lot of coverage. All that at the end builds up that intention. And on top of that, if you ever want to fill in those gaps, I'll show you a little trick that we do with watercolour or food colouring that will fill that all in. So I'm just going to finish this bit up, but again, I'm not speeding up the video because I want you to see how long it realistically takes, and as well, we can be doing this with the video playing and everyone sitting around doing their activity. Now if you're using textures, just note that if you add water to the textures, they will bleed a little bit. I'm just using an art pad that I had lying around, but you can use printer paper, or you can use the blank side of wrapping paper to do this. It would be quite interesting to do it on newspaper. You get a different effect. So there's lots of different ways to do it with the stuff that you have at home. The inside of cereal boxes is also great for artwork. It's nice sturdy card. It saves you on recycling, and it's blank. You got plenty of different things that you can use to build up a nice and interesting artwork. Now once this is finished, these works are very frameable, so they make great presents for family members. You can use them to make cards, great teacher gifts. You can do a great deal of things with them, and they're very special when someone's made it for you, especially if it's tied with some learning. or some therapeutic creating. Just thinking, so where you put your colors isn't super important. You can balance it out by spreading out the colors how you like, or you can have an overflow of colors that you like, or you can try to use only green tones. Like, there's a lot of things that you can experiment with when you're doing this. Okay. What other color will I do? Purpley color, I think. And then I am going to show you my special filling in trick. Now, some people will happily color in for hours and meticulously shade, do ombres or whatsoever they want to do. I have started to get a little bit rough around the edges, but that's all good. Now, I've got watercolor discs, which makes it really, really easy. Just got a little bit of water and my brush, and just go round and round to pick up your color, and I'm going to use that to block out spaces that I've missed in my coloring. If you don't have watercolors, you can also use food coloring, and a little does go a long way. So I've got my little water dish, and you can see it's got water in it already, and I'm just going to add a drop of the red. It's probably a little bit too much water there, but that's okay. We'll reuse that one in a second, and we're using that to paint in as well. With the food coloring, a really nice thing that you can do is that you can use this to do some color theory. So you've got your red food coloring, and you add a little bit of the yellow, and you've suddenly got your orange tones. Well, this one's a dark kind of yellow, but you can experiment with what colors you create with your food coloring to make your artwork. I'm really loving how this is coming together. It's a beautiful kind of contemporary look, whilst looking at shapes, looking at color theory, and practicing your tracing as well as composition, and keeping the creativity going from home. So I'm going to switch over to using my watercolors. Just getting a little bit more water, and I'm going to use some blues. So when you're using watercolor discs or watercolor pencils, you can, the more you go round and round, the more paint you get. So if you want a darker color, you just keep trying to pick up more by revisiting that. If you want a lighter color, you just add more water, and you don't need to. So I'll show you that. I'm just gonna, now we've got to less water, going around the disc a lot more, and it's going to be much darker. And if I want it to be a little bit lighter, again, more water, less paint. And I'm also going to show you a different technique, which is showing you how colouring with textures and adding water has a similar watercolour effect if you are stuck with only textures. Okay, so just using my brush with just some water and going over the texture, and you'll see that it starts to bleed that colour. And again, this is not the most perfect result, but it does create some interesting lines, and you can still see your colouring with the textures as it bleeds, and the bleeding will happen progressively. There you go. I'm going to choose one last colour, and I'm going to use my food colouring for that. And I think I'm going to go for a purple. So I'm just going to add a couple of drops of the blue and a couple of drops of the red. And oh, it's quite dark. But I want it to be a little bit different to all the other colours that I've done. It's more blue than purple, that's okay. Very nice and dark. And this is one of those things where you can experiment with adding a little bit more red and seeing how it changes. So I'm going to do that. There we go. And you'll see that some colours are bleeding into each other, and that's okay. Again, this is what makes it interesting and different. And it means that if everyone in the household is doing this activity, you're all going to have different results. Now, when I'm doing art with my students, I'm always encouraging to allow mistakes to be. A lot of time in my artworks, my mistakes have been my greatest achievements. It really does have a wonderful effect to just let go and let artworks just happen sometimes, and that's okay. Sometimes those mistakes just are what makes the work. So I'm trying to be as relaxed as I can. My students really encourage and bring that out in me. So, because I see the beautiful results that they have when they have no inhibitions about making artwork and enjoying the process. So I always say that a successful artwork is an artwork that you've enjoyed or had some sort of emotion when making, some sort of feeling, something that either it's been cathartic or you've just really enjoyed the process, or maybe you haven't enjoyed it, but whatever emotion that you've put into it is part of that success of the artwork. Okay, nearly done. And there's some bits and pieces there that are bleeding on their own, and we'll just see how they come out when it dries. Okay, and I've just got a second piece of paper here that I've started, and I just wanted to show you how you can support someone that's art making that needs some hand-on-hand assistance or some adaptive technology. So I'm going to start off with some hand-on-hand. Okay, so we've got our shapes. So which one do you want to use? You choose this one. Okay, so we're going to place it. Is that okay there, or do you want to put it somewhere else? That's good there. Okay, so you choose your pencil. Which one do you like? That one? Okay, let's hold on to that pencil just like that, and I'm going to help you go around the shape. Oh, gotta join it up, and we're gonna reveal our shape that we've made. Now, another way that we can do this is if you have an old ball lying around the house. Now, it has to be a foam dense ball, or a tennis ball would work as well. And I'm just going to cut a hole there. So we've got a little hole, and I'm going to insert one of our textures. So I'm going to just pick blue for this and wiggle it into the ball. Now, you can interchange your colours so that you can choose a variety of textures and change them as you go. Now we're going to choose a different shape. So which shape would you like? You choose. Oh, sorry, I've given you two of the same ones. There you go. Choose a shape for me. That one. Okay, that's a tricky one. Now I'm going to guide with the ball. Oh, it's not in the shot. Let's see if we can change that. Okay, and I'm just going to lightly hold there. Now using that ball allows for a better grip, and for guidance just by holding the pen rather than holding the hand, which allows for some greater independence. Now this is great for anybody that has special needs, that has grip issues, or that might have arthritis or anything like that. So that's a really good little hack when you don't have adaptive technologies that you can buy from the shops. So that is very easy to do and interchangeable. We can also put in our paintbrush in there. I'm just going to wriggle it right in, and we're going to again dip, and here we go. Let me just get you started, and I'm just going to lightly guide you as you go around. I'm only there to help, but you go for it. Go. Fabulous. Okay, and we can go through and create our picture just like that. So that was our first activity where we did our Matisse tracing and colour blocking. We'll let that dry and come back to it, and I'll show you what we can do with some paper cutting and sticking. I'm going to move this one out of the way. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Set that one to dry. Okay, so for the second part of this activity, we're going to do the Matisse cutouts. Now, I've got some junk mail. It's something that we easily come by. So again, your art maker can be cutting out the shapes if they like, or you can cut out the shapes for them. The key to this is to have a nice range of shapes. So if you're going to go for geometric shapes, you can do a whole range of geometric shapes and tessellate them, or you can do a whole range of organic shapes, or see how everything can fit together. So I'm going to do a variety of organic shapes just because I like how they work together, and I'm going to use this catalogue but I'm going to use different pages. Now this catalogue is all in similar tones, so I found just some old printer paper that I had lying around, and I'm going to use those as part of it as well. Now this is really great because again, it's really adaptable depending on your art maker's needs. So you can provide a range of cutouts for your art maker to choose, or they can cut out their own shapes. And your results will vary based on the colours of paper that you use. You can also paint the paper. You can use old artwork and make it interesting like that. So I'm going to do one pebble shape for the middle. Now I'm not throwing any of these pieces out because you could use them in building another artwork, so you could just layer those in as well. So I've got my glue stick somewhere on this table. Here we go. And I'm just going to add glue to our pieces. Now, again, ability based, needs based. If your art maker can apply glue, you can they could do it themselves. The other option is to just apply glue to the page and then stick on. So I'm just going to move my shape. So I've put glue on the back here, and I can put that on. Or, as I said, glue can be applied to the page. It's going to dry clear anyway, so it's not, you know, too much of a inconvenience to have some glue. That's not where a shape is going. That's okay. And again, you can always fill the spaces up with some of your food colouring to even out any white areas and make it a little bit brighter. So, going around and around, putting one of my pebble shapes there and my other pebble shape there, and continuing to build and mix up if I'm using magazine cutouts or my printer paper. And by doing this, you get a really interesting look, and you build up a picture that actually like has cohesion and that looks beautiful as well. Okay. Now this is getting a little bit sticky. Now my glue stick isn't the best, so that adds to it. You can overlap or you can avoid overlapping. This is all things that you can choose to personalize your work and to make different versions of it. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And I've got I'm going to go with this bluey color that I had left from the first time, and I'm just going to go around. Now again, this is a completely optional step, but it is nice to mix media and to try things like not lifting your paintbrush off the page, or to try to trace individual shapes and see the effects on them. I'm going to swap my color around using the yellow. And again, created a really nice contemporary build of a work. There we go. And if you're finding the prices and bits and pieces like that looking a little bit confronting in there, you can always paint over sections so that you kind of disguise those bits. But again, this would work really nicely with newspaper, old wrapping paper, what else? Lots of different things. And you'll notice that if you do add water to junkmail, it actually does erase a little bit of the text, so you'll get a nicer kind of effect rather than, you know, your prices are down slogan across your work. Now, there we go. Okay, so that's our second work finished. Now again, you can do this in a variety of ways. You can be really meticulous and keep it really neat, or you can be messy and really layer and add lots of texture. And you can do different versions of this as on different days to build up a little portfolio of how things can be different if you just simply change a couple of techniques. And again, don't forget that these assistive technologies that you can just make at home can make it really easy for anybody that really needs that hand-on-hand help to have a little bit more independence, or for you to guide them without that feeling of hand-on-hand right on top, because just by guiding there, they have control, and then the lines are more genuinely theirs, and they can choose their colors and they can choose what they're doing while still making artwork in a way that is unique to them. Thanks for joining me for this Matisse inspired artwork making session. I'm gonna put these to dry and then I'll see how they look in frames, put them on cards, and we'll have a little show and tell at the end. Okay, so I am just going to show you how we can use these artworks to create other things. So we have the first one. Oh, that one's still a little bit gluey. I might just fix that up there. As it dried, it's peeled off a bit. And those two there. So I'm really loving this one. It's like my favorite for cutouts. Now I've got this piece of black card. If you don't have black card, you can use something else, You can paint a piece of cardboard black, or wait until you can get your hands on some. So I'm just going to trim perforated edge and put that on just like that. So I would glue that, and then you could frame that on, but the black really makes that pop, and then you can put that into a frame if you don't have one at home. The other option is I have this frame that I had left over from Christmas from Kmart. They're very affordable. IKEA also has really great deals on frames. What really makes it is that it comes with this beautiful mat board that really elevates any piece of art that you put in there. This makes a great gift for teachers, for grandparents, for friends. I like to do these instead of birthday cards. You can always slip a message on the back of the frame. So for this you can just move your artwork along till you find a bit that you like. I quite love that bit there. So I'm just gonna put my piece of card as a guide and snip, snip, snip. Now all these pieces are great to keep because you can use those in building up another one. So you can just cut these out into shapes much like you did with the catalogue, and then that helps build up another artwork. So I'm just going to pop that in there, see if I like the position for it. I see I want a little bit more of the red showing, so I'm just going to trim some of that and trim some of that and just position it. Oh, there we go. Put that piece in there to support it. You got a beautiful artwork in there. And the other thing that you can do is make really lovely personalized cards. And I'm going to use the original for that. Just going to fold it. And what I have is just some blank card, but you can also use some of your art paper. And you're just going to trim around the edge. So it's the right size. And you'll see that I'm cutting so that we're losing a little bit, and that's just to make it the right size for the card. And you can just stick it on to make your card. Now this card is actually printed on the other side. We've got a nice pattern, and I think that's actually going to work really nicely for my design. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue on there, make sure that we get all the way to the corners. Now you can do this with your art maker, or you can surprise them by showing them how you have given their work a new life. Now this makes it so much nicer than just popping it on the fridge. When you put it into a frame, it really adds value to it. When you turn it into a product, it also shows how things are made. So you can then talk about design and production and how art is actually in all facets of life. So there we go, we've got a nice little card there. Or you could just use a piece of paper from your art book. Just by tearing it out. And this is a nice little technique gluey fingers, and I'm just going to trim where the spiral binding was. And so you've got your card is folded just like that, and that makes the fold of the card. And I'm going to stick one of the other cutouts from that just on there. Now if you haven't got glue, you can do sticky tape loops or use double-sided paper. Sorry, double-sided tape. But again, these are usually things that you can find in the supermarket or around the house. So envelopes here, so that one just go there, and this would make a lovely gift if you had a little collection of cards wrapped with a bow for your gift recipient to have cards on hand when they need to send well wishes to someone. So there you go, 3 different ways to use up your work to really elevate it, but this one has to be my favorite. Thanks for watching. Oh, and happy art making.